The fourth of the temperaments, which just wasn't wanting to be added to the video which is just finished, is the one where the ego is the strongest of the four bodies, which is present in the individual. And Steiner calls that one the choleric temperament. Now, if you imagine when your ego, when your sense of self is the predominant of the four bodies, then you are going to really have this strength of will, the purposeful doing, purposeful willing. You are going to want to do things, and then that is the main characteristic of a choleric. It is this wish to act, wish to carry through what is in their minds, what their intention is. You can imagine that leads very quickly to being a quality which leaders have, which innovators have. This wish to do something, often something new, to make things better, to lead things in the direction that you want to lead them in. And this is a very strong choleric ability to be able to do this. If you look at leaders just in the outer world, they often have a really choleric attribute. It'll be mixed with other things, but the choler, the leadership quality really will be there. If you have a leader who is overly sanguine, they'll be maybe able to lead, but they'll be leading you in a different direction every day, which isn't on the long term going to work. If you have a leader who has a strong melancholic side, there'll be that leading, but then there'll be moments of real introspection, which if they, as it were, overwhelm the leading aspect, will not help. And then if you can imagine a phlegmatic leader, would be quite difficult, really, because phlegmatics often would say, well, that's just far too much like hard work, someone else can do it. So cholerics really have this leadership action quality. With that, and I'm sure you've also come across this, in someone wanting to lead, they can sometimes, the wish to do, to lead, to achieve their own ends, doesn't always take account for the people around, and they don't always notice whose fingers and toes and heads they're stepping on, which is interesting too. They can be social bulldozers. If the one of the archetypal cholerics was Napoleon, who bulldozed his way right across Europe, and that you lose hundreds of thousands of men was absolutely immaterial, because his ambition was to be the emperor of Europe. Sort of an overly uncontrolled choleric impulse there. So the choleric has these really strong leadership action qualities, and also then can be bossy, can be overbearing, can be insensitive to others, plain not caring, because their will has priority. Also, I mean, just from the word, you can imagine that cholerics can have a temper. If you are really wanting to do something, to carry something through, and you're thwarted, if you meet something, something is saying no, then if your temperament's strong, you're going to want to push through that, just to bat it out the way. And if you're still thwarted, then you can really get outbursts of anger, of rage, of I suppose leading to violence, because this what could be a very healthy impulse to do is being stopped, and then a dam is forming, and it either it breaks through or it doesn't. If you happen to be that dam which the choleric meets, then of course you will meet the choleric head on. So those are the four temperaments. Sanguines being really bouncy, bubbly, social, with the added possibility of being extremely distracted. Phlegmatics are very self-contained, very content, very satisfied, potentially latently. I mean, some phlegmatics can be very lazy because you really can't be bothered. But the other aspect then of phlegmatics is once they are in movement, there is very little which is actually going to stop them, because it's taken so long to get something moving that it is just going to keep on going. I would say what certainly comes across as stubbornness is quite a phlegmatic quality, just this going on and on and on, and nothing is then going to get in the way. Melancholics have this tremendous empathy, real caring, real concern for other people, other creatures, society, which is, as I said, it's what actually makes the world go round. If then that becomes too much of a good thing and turns inward, it is not always easy for the phlegmatic, for the melancholic. And cholerics are just right in your face and can be the greatest people for actually doing things, for innovating, for changing things. They can also be socially very difficult, and yeah, in that way also problematic, like with everything else. Those are the four temperaments in their essence, in extreme forms. I think there can't be a person anywhere who is a pure such and such. We all are mixtures, and the interesting thing is then identifying what kind of mixture you are. If you can imagine, if you're a sanguine choleric, you'll have the positive sides of both. You will also potentially be, just what I said, really choleric, really wanting to do things and hopping in a different direction every week. You're starting so many projects and you're finishing none of them. You can be sanguine phlegmatic, which is, I think, one of the easier temperaments, in that this real phlegma is just leavened with some bubbles, and the sanguinity is able to get you out of this solidity, which can sometimes just become overwhelming. Phlegmatic melancholic is another interesting one. Melancholic, if melancholic turns inward, but then does it with this staying power, the real force and carry through of a phlegmatic, then you're going to stay in that state for quite a while, because the phlegmatic aspect to you will really just persevere with it. And then the choleric melancholic, which is quite a common temperament, is where you can have both the outward choleric and the inward melancholic. Both are aspects of you, and you have the real positivity of both, but at the same time, if you're turning inwards in on yourself and you do it with the vigour and the attack of a choleric, that can be those can be quite difficult moments for the individual who's in that particular state. And so you just actually playing around with all of those is a really interesting thing to do, and highly recommendable. If you're wondering what you are, and you're not quite certain, because you're almost certainly a mixture of several, is to then make the circle. I tried doing this on the board upstairs, but your video kept cutting out. If you make the circle and have, I just put the 4 temperaments on, and then if you are quite strongly, say, sanguine, then just put a dot relatively near the top by the sanguine. If you're not very sanguine, put your sanguine dot nearer the middle. Then if you go over to the phlegmatic, if you're very phlegmatic, put the dot a long way out. If you're not very phlegmatic at all, you put it near the middle. And the same with melancholic. If you're strongly melancholic, it goes on the outside, not very melancholic on the inside. And the same with choleric. And then just join those four dots in a shape, and you'll find it's actually leaning in a certain area, and just see whether that is the area where you say, yeah, most of every day I'm operating in that kind of zone. If you actually can't decide what you are, there's almost certainly one temperament which you're not, one which is not overly a strength, which you don't normally find yourself getting cross and having to be the leader. That isn't your thing. Or you're just not bright and bubbly. You are not the life and soul of the party. You'd rather do anything except effervesce. Or the others aren't especially you. And whatever you're not, look on the opposite side of the circle, and that likely is where you are. Some mixture around the other side. You do get combinations actually. You're going across the circle, but between choleric and phlegmatic, or between sanguine and melancholic. That's absolutely possible, but often you're just a mixture of one side of the circle or the other side of the circle, whichever way. If you're trying to analyze me, I'll do it for you. You possibly have twigged that I have an awful lot of phlegma, and it becomes worse every week. It's getting relatively astonishing. I also absolutely, once I get going, I have a lot of sanguine in there too. I also have some choler, which you will rarely see, but when it comes out with a whoosh. And the one I don't especially do is melancholic. I don't do melancholy. I can get upset, but I don't actually do melancholy that well. So if you just have a think what you might be, but also the people you work with, and if you think what the children you are dealing with, either your own children or those you teach, if you're teachers, that is also an interesting thing. If we're looking at how you then deal with how you respond to the temperaments, you might think that if you've got a choleric, say, that you really want to calm them down, you want to make them less choleric, so you try and be really phlegmatic, and just damp them down, calm them down, get things on an easier keel. Steiner says that is not actually the best way, that the best way to stop a choleric being choleric is actually be a little bit choleric back, to show them a mirror and to indicate this is, I mean, you don't say so, but you're showing them this is what you look like, this is how you're behaving, and just actually show them stop. If you're trying to be phlegmatic, they likely won't notice. No, they just won't notice you at all, because they're so happy being choleric. Don't over choleric. I've also tried that, and it's not recommendable. And if you think with a melancholic, how would you respond to a melancholic child? Would you say, oh, for goodness sake, snap out of it? Or if someone's feeling a little bit sad, just be really, really happy and bubbly and say all the lovely things in life, and have you seen that, and have you heard of this? And your melancholic will almost certainly just sink further down into melancholy. But if you sit beside and just actually really try to respond to that melancholy yourself, are you able to access your inner melancholic, that you can just empathize and intuit on a melancholy level for that moment, and just actually contact them in that way? How are you feeling? That really looks sore. How did it happen? Oh, that's awful. And just see how that goes. And then if you want to deal with a phlegmatic, which is this one takes time, because the phlegmatic, if you go in and just say, no, you've been reading that book for the last 7 hours, please just get up and do something, you will have absolutely zero effect. And the same if you bounce around a phlegmatic, it's just like a fly buzzing around your ear. Eventually you're going to go away, so you just keep on doing what you're doing. But if you're just able to be still around a phlegmatic, just not do anything, not say anything, just be there, eventually the phlegmatic is going to both notice you and wonder why you're there. Right? And if you're just sitting there, as I said, it takes a long time. If you're sitting there, eventually the phlegmatic will say something, because obviously you're not going to. So it could even just be, well, what do you want? Or why are you here? And because you've been sitting beside them for 20 minutes looking at them, eventually something will actually make them they'll have to come out of themselves, which is really, if you have the time, it's quite entertaining to do. So in a mild way, you actually show a mirror. You try and deal like with like, which might be the opposite, the absolute opposite of what you instinctively do. And it might also be the total opposite of your own temperament. You might want to go in there like a bulldozer, because that's just who you are. But then that's I think, a task for you as an adult. Stop being like that, become somebody else, and try that. The first few times it'll be impossible, but actually practicing it becomes a lot of fun. So those 4 temperaments we'll be looking at again. They are one of the most effective pedagogical tools, or also social tools, which you will have in your kitty as a teacher, and are really worth exploring. Thank you.